rush 4. Plenty of time for John. Now squeezes, steps up in the pocket. LA can run inside the 10. Head first. He dives off the 5-yard line.
65 horsepower trap. It might pop wide open, Rats.
It's in there!
Yes, sir, Rats. Touchdown, baby. Yes, sir, Rats.
High snap. It's no good. The Chargers Here comes the rush. He sidesteps. Can he throw? He can't. The ball flipped forward is loose. A wild scramble. 2 seconds on the clock. Casper grabbing the ball. It is ruled a fumble. Casper is recovered in the end zone. The Oakland Raiders have scored on the most seedy.
Man, oh man, what an intro. The Boat Gang, Raider Nation, Chiefs Kingdom, Broncos Country. Welcome to the Wild Wild West podcast, the home of the AFC West podcast, where the West Side is the best side. I'm your host, Coach Defense of the Lockdown Defense podcast. But directly below me, Captain Jack Rackham, Raiders Nation in the building. There he is. To my diagonal right is Alex Gibbons of Arrowhead Addicts, and directly to my this way, there we go, is Richie of the MHRT Network. Welcome, gentlemen. Welcome. How's everybody feeling today?
I've been better. I actually tested positive for the virus that should not be named. Call it Voldemort, if you will. But I tested positive for that a couple of days ago now, or yesterday rather, and I'm on the mend. And thankfully, my voice didn't go, and I haven't crawled up in a corner or anything like that. But I am on the recovery, so you may see me have to step off camera just for a second or two if I have to kind of tuck out, but I'll be fine otherwise.
Well, definitely appreciate you for fighting through and being with us here today. Cap, how you doing over there?
Playing hurt. That's good. He's playing hurt.
Playing hurt. Roll some dirt on it. Let's get out there. Let's get out there. Cap, how you feeling today?
Yarg! I'm feeling friggin' wonderful because it's a Wednesday and I have all my shipmates here and we're going to have a good time talking about the best division in football.
Hey, it's hard to follow that up, but and there's a slight shout out to Cap. I got my Khalil Mack jersey on today. If anybody can see that, I just want to let him know
it's 50 who.
50 dudes. And I'm gonna tweet you the day he sacks Derek Carr. The first time he sacks Derek Carr, I'm just gonna let you know that. And last but not least, Alex Gibbons, how you doing there, sir? Appreciate you.
I'm doing good. Glad to be back here, chopping up the AFC West with you guys. I think we got some good topics lined up for today, and I'm ready to hear your guys' thoughts.
Awesome. So we are in the middle of May. The free agency frenzy is over. The draft is over. The schedule is out. And we are definitely going to get deep dive into and dissect where we feel our season is going to go based upon the schedule that's been dropped last Wednesday. Was it last Wednesday? Last Thursday. It dropped last Thursday. So we're going to talk about, first and foremost, the schedule and how we feel about our chances going in early on to the season. We're not going to, deep dive into preseason, but for sure the regular season. We're going to start with Rich. Give me your takes on how you feel about your schedule and how you feel like your matchups align with your success in this season.
I think it all depends on how well we feel we've addressed or how well we feel we've addressed and how well the new additions that we brought in to address those issues of need perform. And I also think it has to do a lot with injuries. So if any of those guys in the premier positions that are meant to be starters and whatnot get hurt, what is the quality of depth at the various positions? For example, particularly the run stopping right in that middle of the field. Do we have enough depth there to kind of fight forward, 1 or 2 weeks if one of them gets hurt or whatever that case may be? So that's really the big one for me, is that interior part of the defensive line, whether or not we did it enough to then be competitive as we look at our schedule. I only say that because the Raiders ran all over us when we played against them. And I mean, I'd say the Chiefs ran all over us, but we just know they don't run the football there. So, I mean, that's just, that just doesn't happen.
They don't need to.
I mean, it is what it is. But we have some really good running teams this year. So we have the Niners, we have the Colts. Raiders have had traditionally some pretty good runners on their team as well. Seahawks have always traditionally run the ball fairly well. And of course, the Titans, right after a bye week with King Henry himself, who pretty much almost won the rushing title for the league and was hurt for like 6 or 7 games at the back end of the season, which is just unreal on its face that you can be that far ahead of the pack and then only finally get caught at the end.
Awesome. So if you had to underscore a marquee matchup, like this is a game that you got to circle on your calendar in your schedule, what would that game be?
I actually think the very first game of the season is almost the most critical for us.
Mm-hmm.
It's Monday Night Football, prime time, only game on TV, and it's Russell Wilson against the Seattle Seahawks at Seattle.
That's a good one. That is a good one.
So not only are you going up against, the team that traded him away, so to speak, they did it, but I mean, it was sort of amicable, I guess, but it's a big game, because if you don't win that one, it's a bit of a potential tone setter for the rest of the season, and it can really undermine morale and whatnot in the locker room. So I think that one's a very, very big one for us to win.
Awesome.
And there's, kind of a big test for both sides, because both QBs, if Seattle has lock, they're both going to have chips on their shoulder, right? Going into it, wanting to show the other franchise that let them go, what they got. So I didn't know they played, week 1 like that. That's going to be an interesting one.
Yes, definitely a marquee matchup. You got any thoughts on the Broncos schedule, Cap, before we move on?
Did they do anything to improve? I haven't been keeping up. I think, I lied. I did notice that they did something that is definitely Bronco-esque. Okay. They don't have the capabilities to draft a quarterback. So what they do is they go and get sloppy seconds. And I say that, facetiously. Okay. They go out and they get a quarterback that will help them. They did it with Peyton Manning. Okay. And they had to do it again because between Elway and Manning, there was a bunch of garbage, and I'm being kind. Okay. And between Manning and Russell Wilson, I don't even know what the proper adjective is, but at least they picked up a quarterback in Russell Wilson. So I will give them props for that. The only thing that I have to say, and again, I'm not being an a-hole when I say this, and I'm being honest about this. The thing about the Broncos is the Broncos are always, as well as your team, Coach, they are always the sexy pick at the beginning of the year. Oh, my God, the Broncos are going to be fantastic. Did you see what the Chargers did? Oh, they are going to run away with football. Just give them the Lombardi now. And it's like a soda can that has a pinhole leak in it, and you crack the top, and there's no fizz. There's no nothing. There's no bubbles. It's flat. So I just got to see if the sizzle is in the steak, or if y'all have been dining at that with Sizzler Barbecue, and there's really not a lot of good things at the Sizzler Barbecue. But the one thing I will say about the Broncos is, will Russell Wilson be running for his life behind a different offensive line like he did last year? It's just a change of scenery.
Okay. Do you feel like it gets dark when Cap talks about other teams? Like the shade is real. It's really real. Like, it gets really dark. Like the lights go dim. It's really bad. It's really bad.
Happiness in
The
everyone's
only thing
face,
that's missing is that movie music that comes on in the background of that like thunderous kind of
Right.
that's really the only thing that's not there. But yeah, it does, like the lights dim, clouds come overhead.
It's really bad. I just feel a dark cloud over everybody when he talks.
And
And
dude,
one dark cloud just follows you.
I love you guys, and I mean that. I love you guys. So
You
it's
just
not-
don't like our teams. You
Yeah,
just don't like our teams.
I don't like your teams, but I love you guys.
Okay,
And-
that's
and-
fair.
and
I
again,
guess
so
we have to
it's-
accept that.
It's not hate and discontent to you. It's just analysis.
Right.
Well,
With a
I
little bit of
will step
bias.
in and just say that
Little bit.
I do agree that the Denver Broncos have obviously struggled in drafting a quarterback. I do also I also kind of agree to the other side of the critiques that have said that we didn't really do many of those drafted quarterbacks since Peyton Manning many favors either.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
for example, Herbert has had a system that seems to fit him, and they've adapted that system over time to try and fit him best. Similarly, you look at Andrew Reid with Patrick Mahomes. He has adapted his offensive system and continued to tweak it to try and bring out the best in Patrick Mahomes and give the system what Mahomes can do best and what allows the team to do the best to succeed. And they've had a darn good record as a result in the time that he's been there with the team. I would argue that the Raiders have actually done some similar things to the Broncos with Derek Carr. So what they've done with Derek Carr is they had a system that worked for him. And then they said, I know what we're going to do. We're going to completely change a system that is away from Derek Carr's strengths. Because I can say this honestly, because the Denver Broncos did the same thing with Drew Lock. Is you move to a system that is not to that quarterback's strengths, and then are surprised with the results that are subpar. It makes no sense to me.
I would say it goes in line with the changing of personnel and coaches. Like I think the coaching changes was indicative of those philosophy changes.
May I-
Yes, but
Yeah.
Best coach,
Yeah,
yes, but the first off, two things. One, good GMs bring in coaches that better fit and best fit the players that are there.
Mhm.
And two, coordinators that are even halfway decent at their job will adapt the system to fit the players that they have, especially at the most important position on the field, and that is quarterback for the offensive coordinator. So it comes down to the coordinator themselves. One, is the OC capable of adapting and fitting the player? Yes or no? If it's a no, then you better have fit the offense. You better have picked the offensive coordinator that best fits your quarterback. And if you're a no to both, then you've done your entire team a disservice, and that's largely on the executives within the organization for picking the wrong person for the job.
Okay. What you got to say, Cap?
Only because you're actually giving me a segue, which proves my point. When Derek Carr was an MVP candidate in 2016, he had an offensive coordinator by the name of Musgraves, right? Remember what happened to him? We shipped him off to Denver the next year because some meathead, aka Mike Tice, his nickname was the Meathead, just like in All in the Family. I know I'm dating myself if you guys don't know Meathead from All in the Family, but anyway, his nickname was the Meathead. Mike Tice got the Raiders coaches to get rid of Musgraves and hired Downing, which was a big mistake. The reason why I say that this is significant, in 2016, he ran an offense under Musgraves known as the Fairbanks-Earhart offense from Chuck Fairbanks and Ron Earhart, New England coaches from the 70s. Now, may I interject that Josh McDaniels, who is a hell of a lot more up to date than some head coach that we've had for the last 3 or 4 years, who's still, I think he's still doing long math with an abacus and maybe a Texas Instruments calculator because he's not involved with the modern age. Okay, Josh McDaniels comes in with a system that is. Let me see what's it called. Oh, it's the Fairbanks-Earhart offense. So talk about bringing an offense that the last time Derek Carr was an MVP candidate, He's bringing that back to Derek Carr.
That's a good point, Cap. I didn't know that. That's definitely the fun fact of the day. I like that.
That's why I'm here. That's why I'm here.
I hear you. So
Right, but
let's
that's my point though, right? Is that you brought in an offensive coordinator that best fits your quarterback now.
Yeah.
But to your critique about the Broncos, which is my similar critique with the Raiders, is that for years, I'm saying there's parallels here. I'm not critiquing one versus the other. I'm saying there's parallels here, which is the Broncos have not done our young quarterback any favors in the last 2 years, just as the Raiders have not done Derek Carr any favor in the last like 3 or 4 almost in terms of the gap between Musgrave and where you're at now.
Yeah.
And the good thing about all of this is that we will be able to get a reasonably good idea of whether or not that type of comment is correct with Drew Lock, for example, because he's going to an outside zone scheme, which is very similar to what Denver Broncos are going to be running as well with Russell Wilson, because both quarterbacks, in my opinion, fit that style of offense. So Denver Broncos fans will be able to get an understanding or an idea of whether or not Drew Lock can maybe revive his career in a system that likely fits his skill set better. And more importantly, though, it's clearly an upgrade at the quarterback position with Russell Wilson here at the Denver Broncos, running the same system here where you're likely going to end up with games that are won as a result of a more competent quarterback.
I'll give you that.
And with regards to our major gaps last year, they were mostly on the run defense side of the defense side, as opposed to, I know our offense wasn't spectacular either, but when you're talking about what kept our offense off the field, it was our run defense primarily in the center of the field at that kind of D tackle, nose tackle position. We made some major steps there to improve. We also got a draft pick to help compensate and add some depth there as well. So I do think you're going to see some huge upgrades in the run stopping of the Denver Broncos, which was our major pitfall on the defensive side of the ball, which will help when we play particularly the Chargers, who have had a good run game the last few years, and the Raiders. And, when you guys decide to run the ball in KC, we'll be able to stop you too.
All right. So, Cap, let's move over to you and your schedule. How do you feel about your guys' schedule, and what's the marquee matchup that you're looking at? Did you guys circle on your calendar?
I would say that there's 2 marquee matchups. And no disrespect to Richie Riche, but we bookend our season with marquee matchups. Okay, with the secondary marquee matchup near the end of the season as well. We start in Los Angeles facing the Chargers. Coach, are you going to be at that game? Because I'm going to be corner end zone, front row at that game.
I'll be corner basement man cave, but
okay.
Well, seat in the house right there.
Yeah, that's right. Corner end zone of the marquee matchup on September 11th, and boy, were those tickets expensive.
I saw.
Yeah. But I'm corner end zone for that game, and I'm also corner end zone for a certain game in Week 5. Basically the same spot, front row, corner end zone, Raiders sideline in Kansas City. October, it's not going to be so cold. That's why I decided to come out there. But again, I'm getting off subject. Apologies. If you guys don't know, Captain Jack will get you from the highway to the back roads and back to the main highway. Okay. There you go. Now, starting with the Chargers, and I'll be kind. I'm starting because I call them the Garglers. Everybody knows my pet names for all the teams in this division. If you start off with a win, it's going to be very instrumental because, again, Raiders at Chargers and, like I said, Broncos have that Monday nighter. You got to start out right. But the bottom line is that at the very end of the season, in Week 18 in Vegas, we end with the ketchup and mustard crew for the barbecuers out in Kansas City. So again, that is starting off the season and ending the season. You got a bunch in between. And I like the schedule. There's only like a couple really cold weather games. Denver, November 20th. Seattle, cold and wet the week after that. But other than that, it's either not too many weather games. We finally played the Kansas City Chiefs when they're not coming off a frickin' bye, because every year we play them, they're coming off a frickin' – and he will tell you it's true. He will tell you it's true. We always get Kansas City after a friggin' bye.
Where you guys really screwed up was the victory lap you took around Arrowhead. You haven't won since then.
Uh-oh.
I believe that was Gruden's doing.
It was.
It was. And you know what? The victory lap was a mistake, as well as coming out onto the field and stomping on the Warhead or the Arrowhead. That was dumb. That was dumb. I like the idea of the thought of trying to get the team together, but if you're going to do that, there's a couple different ways to do that. You get around the Arrowhead and say, no, we're going to surround these people, okay? We're going to surround them and take what is ours and do that. You don't start. That is so high school. That is so Terrell Owens on the Star. It was stupid. And if you're going to do it, you better be able to friggin' come out and back it up. When the first play from scrimmage, you fumble the friggin' ball for a fumble 6. Okay,
Yeah, that was cool.
That was horrible. So again, I give you right there, shipmate. Bad move, circling Arrowhead in a victory lap, and then going out and doing that.
You weren't wrong though. You guys, we always seem to play the Raiders right after our bye, except for this season. I think the last 4 years have been like that.
I have a question for Alex and Captain. With that game at the very end of the season like that, and given the fact that I think we're all predicting that our division is going to be a pretty tight race.
Yeah.
Would we all agree that there's a legitimate shot that game could be flexed?
It is. It's already flexed. I mean, it's to be determined on the schedule, so they already are anticipating that.
So was the Chargers Broncos last game of the season. They got that flexed too.
Because I mean, those games are going to be. I mean, someone's going to get the crap into the stick there, right? I mean, out of those 2 games, somebody's going to be. I think 3 are making it out of here. So one of those games is going to be bad for someone, and I think they're waiting to see which one of the 2 has more implications than the other.
Indeed.
Yeah, so you're thinking that they're going to look at the schedules and the win totals, stack them up, and one of those 2 games will be flexed to later in the. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, that's what happened when the Broncos played the Chiefs a couple years ago, I think.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then the Raiders Chargers last year. That was flexed this Sunday night because of
flexed, baby.
Right.
Yeah. Come on, coach. Give me some. Give me some of that 50.
I'm not giving you nothing. We lost. I'm not giving you nothing.
No, but flex for me, coach.
Flex for you. I'm good. I'll flex for you when we beat y'all first game of the season.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes, indeed. Okay, so y'all got any rebuttals regarding the Raiders' schedule before we move on?
We'll just see.
I
don't know. I feel like the Raiders, sort of similar to the other teams, always kind of has some sizzle going into the season, and then outside of last year, it kind of always sputters out. So
thank you. You are right.
We'll see. I know that at least from a Chiefs perspective, they're going to split probably these series, between the rest of the teams. It kind of happens that way, regardless. It'll just be interesting to see how the non-divisional games work out. Is there a feedback?
Yeah.
So do you think you guys did enough to improve?
I'm sorry, Rich. I walked on you. Go ahead, sir.
Given your schedule in division and also just your schedule overall, do you guys think you guys did enough in the offseason to bring enough people in to compensate for the people that you lost or that walk in free agency and end up with a good record?
Who's that to?
That's to Alex.
Oh, I thought you were asking. I thought you were asking him.
That's why I asked.
Is there like an echo right now?
Yeah, there's a real bad echo for some reason.
Yeah. We'll make it work. I mean, I think the Chiefs have. I think they've done enough to replenish what they lost in Hill, and kind of like I said last week, I think they brought in enough pieces to be more unpredictable than they were. And I think anytime you have Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, you can't really say the offense is going to be worse. Andy Reid comes into every week with 15 plays he designed that Sunday for the next team, and it just took him 20 plus years in the league to get the quarterback he finally needed to be able to do some of the stuff he wanted. Nobody can replace Tyreek Hill. He's a one of a kind player. But he was a 5th round pick and was a tweener, running back, wide receiver when he first came in. And, obviously some of his own work ethic and drive got him to being the highest paid receiver in the league right now. But I think also some of that is the coaching and the coaching staff and scheming of Andy Reid that got him so successful. I'm not going to say that McCole Hardman's going to go out there and fill the shoes and have the same stats, but I just don't really think they've lost as much as people like to say they have. Travis Kelce's still there and he hasn't really regressed. And I think it's going to be interesting to see what Juju Smith kind of does when he's not forced to catch 10-yard lobs from Ben Roethlisberger and can actually kind of run, a more diverse route tree and has some more capable receivers around him. They had Johnson there in Pittsburgh, but Claypool, they didn't really ever have consistent targets up there outside of Smith once, AB left. So I think Juju's going to have a pretty good year. And if he wants to get the money he signed for, he's going to need to. So, I just think that I think there's enough there for them to kind of not really lose a step. But at the same time, almost every team in the AFC, not just the AFC West, but every team in the AFC that's been competitive also added pieces to kind of stay right there. So, I really wish I wish they were in the NFC this year, but because it just seems like there's only 2 teams over there, and then there's 10 that are all potentially, have a valid shot of making the Super Bowl from the AFC side. So, it'll be interesting, but I don't really buy the narrative that them losing Tyreek is such a big loss.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of wait and see for a lot of teams. I think it's a wait and see to see how Russell Wilson's going to do with Nathaniel Hackett, how the Tyreek-less Chiefs are going to be, how Josh McDaniel was going to be.
Yeah. And like EJ just said here, the Chiefs have won the AFC West how many years in a row now? And so they're kind of going to be on top until someone knocks them off. So
I know the number because I got a Chiefs fan at work that reminds me. Okay. 6 times.
So you did make one interesting thing there, and I think just for all the other teams, fans that are here, this is just a generally interesting question, just kind of be able to get this type of information. So do you think that some of those acquisitions, including Smith-Schuster, having come from Ben, we'll call him on the downside of his career, do you think that he is capable of running a more diverse route tree? Or do you think that that'll be a learning curve for him because he was never capable, or not saying he wasn't capable, but he wasn't able to because of some of the limitations?
Well, I think he has that, the route. I think he has all that there already. And honestly, when you went to go watch kind of his rookie year, when he put up, pretty ridiculous numbers. Granted, Antonio Brown was on that, and Le'Veon Bell, when they were all good, were on that team. But that was before Big Ben had his last major elbow surgery. He could still kind of throw it. You could tell he drastically dropped off when he came back from that second, this last year. And you could kind of see where they had, routes set up where AB was kind of drawing the attention and Juju would be up, open over the top. That's where he got a good chunk of his yards. And I think I think you just kind of had to take a hit when Big Ben got hurt and came back, and it was kind of one last ride. And I mean, they just did a lot of hitches and slants and bubbles. I mean, that's just kind of what the Pittsburgh offense turned into in that last year. So I think that, and granted, he also doesn't have the best of history as it comes to injuries, but I think he has everything there to be able to pick up more, have more of a role and have better stats with a better QB kind of there slinging the ball to him.
Sure.
That's fair. That's fair. All right. So do we actually want to get into the Chiefs' actual schedule, which you got circled on your calendar?
Oh yeah. Yeah. First reaction. I really like the sub story with the schedule coming out, and that there's just all these Twitter burner accounts that are being created like that day and would say Chiefs are playing Texans week 1, and then it was like all these outlets are just running with it, and then the schedule comes out and it's nothing like that. Because I was like, I fell victim to it. I was like, Texans week 1, that'd be awesome, because I mean, you could put a middle school team out there and probably it'd be a close game, but probably still win by 3.
Bring marshmallows or a dumpster fire.
Yeah. Wow. And then the schedule comes out, and not going to lie, the Chiefs, they got pretty screwed. I saw a tweet from Adam Schefter that said they're the first team in the history of the league to have to start the season with 8 straight games against teams that had a winning record in the previous year, which I just think is mind-blowing when you look at it. I mean, they got Arizona to start, and then right into an AFC matchup on Thursday, short turnaround, Amazon Prime, Kirk Herbstreit's going to be announcing. Then go straight from that to the Colts, and then the Bucks, and then the Raiders, and then the Bills, Niners, and then a bye, and then open up with Tennessee. So that is not there's no one game there that I would say is an absolute win. I think that every team has a chance in the NFL. And, going into them, once we get closer to the season, I'll have more to be able to substantiate my claim that they're going to win. But, these are all right now looking at it way too early as we are. 50-50 shots. Out of those ones I just mentioned, I think the only one that is more of a guaranteed win than not is the Colts. And that's only because you don't really – they got Matt Ryan. And if we just really, I feel like, don't know how that's going to pan out. And, who knows if Jonathan Taylor is the same type of player he was the year before. And who knows now that they've kind of seen what their running schemes are, teams are going to play them differently. That's the only team that I'm not necessarily sold on as being as good as they were the year prior. But outside of that, all these games are going to be tough, and they're all against really good teams. And then the back half of the season gets a little better. You have Jacksonville and the Texans, but then you also got to play the Bengals again and the Rams, and then finish with Denver and Vegas. So there's just really not, outside of Jacksonville and the Texans, there's really not, a whole lot of games that I'm like, those are definite wins.
Yeah, I think your schedule is absolutely brutal, and that's the I guess
it's about time.
Yeah,
isn't that the point?
Yeah. First place schedule.
You win the division. That's kind of the point. The whole point is that when you win the division, you should then come back and have to prove yourself against some better competition to prove that you belong on the top. And on that note, if there's anyone that has any comments that they would like to leave below the video in the respective channels that you're watching on about the schedules that you've heard so far, if you think we're wrong, I'd love to hear it. And if you have any other comments about what other games you think for your respective teams may well, need to be discussed, or maybe we should talk about it next podcast, please leave those comments below in the video. And also, guys, help us with that algorithm on YouTube. Like this video on whatever channel you're watching it on. It really helps us boost and get to see more fans so that we can put out more content and have it be more and more successful to make sure we get a lively chat in here. Coach, over to you. I want to hear about them Chargers.
Yeah, I think that having a third place schedule actually might benefit us this time around. I like our matchups. Overall, I went back and forth about wins and losses when it came down to who I think we have a good shot against early on and who we might struggle against. And I like our chances in overall how we got how the schedule kind of lined up. I think we have the reversal with the Chiefs have. It gets kind of brutal towards the end. But early on, we had two tough matchups, and then we kind of got the Jaguars and the Texans, and the Falcons are mixed in there, things of that nature. So I think that particular aspect of it is helpful in between the bye. But overall, man, I like our chances. I mean, 2 division matchups right out the gate. What can you ask for? We're gonna really see what we're about early on. When it comes down to the team as a whole. My biggest thing, I was speaking this, and I'm going to keep speaking until the camp is over. Health. We have to be healthy. We're not healthy going into the season, then, it's just going to be a same cycle of things that be going on. We just have to be healthy. We're healthy, and we kind of adopted with the Rams philosophy, and we are playing starters a lot in the preseason. So hopefully that will aid in the ability to be healthy. And we have a lot more depth this year. So I think that's going to help us as well for the first time in maybe ever in my existence of being a Chargers fan, the amount of depth that we have. So I like that aspect of it. So going into the season healthy, maybe add a receiver somewhere down the line that has a little bit more speed that can stretch the field. The only thing on my wish list. But outside of that, I like where we sit. I like everything that's going on with our schedule. It has ebbs and flows, but I like us being competitive in pretty much all of it. To Alex's point, I'm 50-50 on the Colts as well, because I kind of looked at that matchup late in the season before we played the last 2 division games, and I'm like, who are the Colts? But the defense is going to be really good. On paper, the defense is really good. I mean, I don't know what the offense is going to be. However, the defense is going to be really good. So they're going to that should keep them in games. And Ryan Madden in the game, they can be competitive. So I won't sleep on that game either.
Yeah.
Yeah, I won't sleep on that game either. But I definitely like, they may be competitive and may be in the hunt for a playoff spot. So it's going to be a marquee matchup. But yeah, I mean, I just can't wait for the Raiders week 1, and we'll see from there. Because like I said, we turn around for you guys right after that short week and Kansas City. So, and we know we had success against Charlotte in Kansas City last year, but can we reduplicate that particular effort? That's what I'm looking forward to. So, I mean, overall, I like it. I mean, what I do like about this whole too early predictions and things people talk about when it comes to the schedule is that how they have everybody high on wins in the AFC West. Like everybody is 8+ 8.5 or more wins over and under.
Oh, yeah.
So that particular part of it is crazy to me, because I'm like, we all play each other 6 times. How are you going to squeeze out 8 or more wins out of this whole thing? I don't see how that's going to be possible, but stranger things have happened. But, I think all things remain equal. I think we all like our chance to try to make the playoffs. It's just a matter of how we do coming down the stretch. Probably by week 8 or week 9, we kind of see what we really are and who we can potentially be when it comes to being a dominant and competitive team. So
even if we all split games, like let's just assume for the sake of argument and we'll call it pacification of all these analysts that want to put out these records. Right. Let's just assume that we all split with each other.
Yeah.
Every series. Like 50-50.
It's a chance. It can happen.
I mean, it's certainly possible.
And you got to pretty much win out after. Besides that,
but then you basically need to win out almost the majority of your other games in order for each of the AFC West teams to end up with the records that they're claiming.
Yeah,
because you have a guaranteed 4 loss. Like you have guaranteed then 3 losses just by splitting those games.
Truth.
And
right?
I think also, Richie, I think that if you have to be no worse than 3-3 in the AFC West, because the minute that you're 2-4,
you're out.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
You just blew all your tiebreakers. Okay. That, like I said, I think 3 of the teams in this division are playoff worthy. Okay.
Agreed.
And the minimum that has to be done, like you said, you got to be 3-3 split, because then it's going to come down to the other teams that you play. You go 2-4, and you lose to one of these teams twice.
You're pretty much done.
You're out.
It's pretty much a wrap. It's pretty much a wrap. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
So kind of a segue into that. Now, this is going to sound crazy to most people when you hear this, but I guess the betting odds had every team but the Raiders at 10.5 wins. Like, how is that even possible mathematically? I don't know. But they have every team but the Raiders at 10.5, and then the Raiders are at 8.5. So going around the room, I'm gonna start with you, Rich. How do you feel your chances are over under with 10.5 wins as a prediction going on at this point in the season?
I'm a bit more of an aggressive realist when it comes to these sorts of things.
Okay.
It is so hard for a team from going to the sub 500 record that we had last year to then flip the switch, air quotes there for those of you who are listening via audio. It is so hard for you to get that flip switch and then get like an inverted record of 10-5 as opposed to 5-10 or anything along those lines. Now, I will say that a competent quarterback like we had with Peyton Manning, we saw a pretty quick flip of that switch for the Broncos. And Russell Wilson certainly has the detail required in terms of his preparation to potentially end us, get us to a point where that's possible. But I mean, you just have to play the odds. You're typically not as far ahead as you think you are just by adding a couple pieces. You need to let the culture marinate and you need to progress yourself forward and you need to allow the system that hopefully better fits all of your players or best fits all of your players to set in. So I think that I think 10.5 is probably
a little high.
Okay. I think it's okay. Given the fact that you're in a 17-game season rather.
I saw you, Alex. I saw you.
Hey, look, I'm going to be honest here, Alex. I think that the Chiefs.
I have a question for you when you're.
You can. However, you also have to understand that there's also, was it 50% of all playoffs teams from the year prior don't make the playoffs again?
Somewhere around a percentage. Somewhere around that.
Right?
Yeah.
Somewhere in that range, if not mistaken.
When's the last time the
Chiefs
Chiefs
at this point
haven't
are well
made the
overdue.
playoffs?
So
Okay.
I think you guys need to be careful. So let's
yeah.
simmer on that just a little bit.
Hey, I'm riding high, man. Elvis Gerback was the QB when I first became a fan. So
Right, but that's what I'm saying is
have my moment here.
the Chiefs are actually due right now to kind of start going on the down curve. So I think that there's room for
Maybe.
other teams within the division to then start improving. I think that the Broncos are in the best position right now, given what we've done in the offseason, to improve. However, the division is literally a dogfight.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll come down to health and it'll come down to depth on the team. And I think the Broncos have a pretty deep roster at most positions. So if we were to get injured at certain positions on our team, inside linebacker is a concern of mine, for example, then I think that we're in big trouble. However, by and large, I think we have the most room for improvement. I think 10 wins is a fair prediction. But I also think that we need to be realistic as Broncos fans and that 10 wins is a huge improvement over where we were at last year.
Indeed.
Here's my question, though.
Fire away.
What was the Seahawks record last year?
Like 5 and the rest, 5 and 12.
Is it
Then,
5 and 12, I think.
Yeah, something like that.
So, where is the Broncos roster so much better than the Seahawks that you're going to be able to just plug Russell Wilson in and you double your wins? That's my only thing, because I have a buddy that's a diehard Broncos fan. The first thing I said to him was, "Yeah, like that looks good on paper, but last I checked, the Broncos' offensive line isn't any better than the Seahawks," and that was the biggest concern.
It
yes,
is.
no, you got Bowles, but Bowles is like
that's where you're wrong. It is.
I mean, yeah,
it is. So last year, statistically, the Denver Broncos had a far superior offensive line to the Seattle Seahawks. Now, I'm not gonna be that orange-colored glasses guy and sit here and tell you that we have no issues on the offensive line, because we do.
Yeah.
But I'm also not going to tell you, and I'm not going to sit here and say the Seahawks were, this exact same, because they weren't. The Broncos' offensive line was superior to the Seahawks last year, and it wasn't close. If I'm not mistaken, the Seahawks were the bottom 5 and the Broncos were right in the middle.
The
So
seven-
they were 7-10. So from the offensive line perspective, the Broncos were better. I also think we had a better running game than Seattle did last year.
Yeah, that's true.
So that certainly helps with a guy like Russell Wilson, who also has some ability. He has the ability to take off and run himself. So that gives you kind of a dual threat with the quarterback and the running back.
But do you want to get a guy that's, in pushing mid-30s and rely on his legs to carry your offense? I mean,
but see, you're going too far extreme. You're going too extreme.
Yeah.
Like, for example, Patrick Mahomes can run. Well, he kind of waddles, but he runs.
Yeah.
But when he does run, he runs really well because most people don't expect him to run, and he's a lot faster than he appears to be.
Yeah.
Right? And Russell Wilson doesn't need to be a Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
He just needs to show every so often that if he runs, he can get good yardage, and that will force every team that plays him to account for that.
Yeah, I kind of mischaracterized his running. I mean, he more runs around to buy time for someone to get open and get yards. But, I mean, that's just obviously Russell Wilson's a drastic improvement at quarterback. But
right.
I'm just not so sold that you put him with the Broncos lineup and arguably – and he went from one tough division to one that just became tougher, but he was in a division with Aaron Donald, Chandler Jones, and, all these other pass rushers. And I mean,
who was that one person you named? Who was it?
Well, I'm talking about last year, Chandler Jones.
No. But you mentioned the kryptonite right there. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you doing that.
And he's on the Raiders now, but I just don't. That's my thing is I just don't know if when I get at this point of going into the season, you're obviously everyone's optimistic. I just don't know if just making a swap like that is enough to just totally turn the tide up to 10.5 wins. I do think they're going to be better. I think 8 wins is probably more in line with where I think they'll be at, but I think they're going to be trending up, not doing any worse than last year.
That's fair.
Well, I also think that the depth of the receiver room, including the tight ends, is also going to be an improvement for Wilson. And I think the Seahawks had 2 really good receivers.
Yeah.
One of them was probably a superior one to anyone the Broncos have. But I think when you look at the overall room in terms of absolute quality of players and the reliability of the players. I mean, the one guy on the Denver Broncos that no one seems to want to give credit to, but he's basically probably my favorite Broncos wide receiver that we have right now is Tim Patrick.
Oh, yeah. Well, because he's the only one that doesn't get hurt.
Yeah, he never gets hurt. He always catches the ball, and he's 6'5" and almost 220.
Right.
So, I mean, the dude is what you just called the radius receiver or the zip code receiver. It's you throw him in his general vicinity. It's caught. He's never dropping it, and he's always getting almost a first down. Right? It's just he's a great receiver.
Yeah.
And so I think that when you have a depth of the wide receiver core that the Broncos have for a guy like Russell Wilson, as well as now 3 guys that could potentially be thrown into the mix for a blend of size and speed. So MHRT Network just interviewed Montreal Washington last night, who was the 5th-round draft pick for the Denver Broncos, slated to be mostly on our special teams, but he also had, particularly against Florida, if you're a college football fan at all, he ran all over them. He had all-purpose yards that were just all over the place.
Yeah,
so he's a guy that I think to be thrown into the mix on the offensive side of the ball as well.
Mm-hmm.
And you also have KJ Hamler, who's coming back, who was really starting to show those progressions last year. And I just think that Russell Wilson has a better depth in the bench when it comes to the wide receiver and offensive weapons.
Yeah,
and he's more accurate than Drew Lock was. So, and also Jerry Jeudy as well. Who is
he might not make it he might be suspended.
He'll be fine. They've already said he's not going to be suspended for that.
Okay.
I mean, don't get me wrong, that was an idiot and just dumb move.
Well, you also got to think these are like 21, 22.
Yeah, these are 20-somethings who are going to make
I mean,
silly choices.
You give me $15 million. Who knows what I'm doing?
Yeah, he just made a bad choice, and that's really unfortunate. But at the end of the day, it was a bonehead choice, and he's not going to be suspended from what the NFL has said so far.
Yeah.
So having a guy who can throw a precision ball like Russell Wilson, similar to like Derek Carr is a pretty accurate thrower of the football, for example. And that's why a guy like Renfro has done really well there, is because Renfro is a tactician when it comes to running routes.
Okay.
And so I think that that's going to make a big difference.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments on Rich's take of 10.5 over 10.5 ranks?
Is he still going with the over? I think that.
I actually think that 10.5 or 10, like maybe 11, just because you can't have half a win. That's just silly.
Right, right.
But I could see somewhere in that. Oh, please no. I could see like 10 or 11 as a realistic number to basically say that, the quarterback being the most important position on the field is a big deal. And having a guy like Wilson does make that big of a difference. But I do think that some of the schedule predictions where you're seeing some of the analysts claiming, 13 wins or 12 wins, I think they need to slow down.
Yeah.
Now, if we hit 12 or 13 wins, I'm certainly not going to be upset, right? But
you don't want to get your hopes up,
But I'm not trying to be unrealistic by saying like, that's the expectation.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair. All right, what you got, Alex? How you feel about your over under 10.5 with your brutal schedule?
Yeah. Well, I do want to sit here and say for sure over it. No doubt in my mind. But then I kind of would just be discounting my statements I made probably 10 minutes ago with the strength of the schedule. I'm gonna say over, but I think they're like 10 or 11 wins. To Rich's point, I feel like anybody that has 13 wins or more, they obviously started the year going undefeated and made it to 10-0, 11-0, and then lost one and then picked there's just no one that it seems to lose a game early that then somehow picks it up to get 13 wins. And I just don't. I think that out of the first 4 weeks, they're going to come out of it with one loss. Who that would be to, I'm not totally sure. Well, maybe we'll see. They'll probably split with the Chargers. Out of the three, I'd say the only one I think they'll sweep is the Broncos.
I like it. I like it.
Come on,
spicy.
But I think between the Chargers or the Bucs game, they're going to lose one of those.
That's fair.
And I think the rest. And like I said, they'll probably split one with the Raiders. The Bills game that's going to be a 50-50. That's going to come down to the last possession. Probably poetic justice going to go the new overtime rules, and Josh Allen will get a possession and they'll still lose. But either way, I'm just kind of trying to look at, I think they'll beat the Bengals this year in the regular season. I think that's I think they are going to have a recoup game plan for that one. Wrote a big article on the reason why they lost, and you guys are all going to laugh at me, but it's because they didn't run the ball. So maybe they just do that, easily win that. Playing the Rams will be a tough one, but I see them at least getting 10 wins. I think best case scenario is 11. Worst case, I think a lot of the division's going to be around the 8 wins, and it's going to come down to those last games, which I honestly think the NFL wants. So,
ratings. Yes.
It's just hard at this point to predict it, especially not really knowing how the offense.
Do this. It's way too early.
Yeah.
Way too early. Let's be optimistic.
But what I wanted to say is, the Chiefs are going to do whatever they need to do to win the AFC West. However many wins that will need to be, they'll somehow find a way to get it done until they prove me wrong. They haven't yet. So,
well, the good news is we'll be here to talk about it. So, that's
exactly.
All right. So, Kat, what you got? You guys are projected at 8.5.
Okay. First, I got to ask, is there a trustworthy, and that's the operative word, is there a trustworthy person watching that can lay $100 on the over for the 8.5? Because I firmly believe that the Raiders will win 9 games.
Okay.
That's an easy bet for me. Okay. I won last year on the bet. I think that they had to win 9, or it was 8.5. And I was like, yeah, okay. Or it was 8, and then I got it at 8.5. I was like, damn,
Mm.
But I really think that the Raiders will win at least 9 games. And therein lies the rub. Okay. And Richie and I have spoken about this on my show before, which, by the way, you guys, please come over to Captain Jack's show. We welcome all fans of all teams, and that's everybody that's watching here. Hit the YouTube there. I'm not as much as a Twitter guy, but I love to have fans from all teams come in. And trust me, I don't treat people like bags of crappé. Okay, non-fecal matter. Okay, have fun. But
Sacks of crap.
yeah, getting back, I really think that the Raiders will win at least 9 games. But I really think that, and this is like your over, is that it will come down to production, injuries, and because there's going to be a big injury amongst the teams. There always is. Okay,
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
yeah.
that's
Especially the
why
Chargers.
the Raiders,
Thank you.
floor to me is exactly what they had last year, which is 10 wins. Okay, that's the Raiders' floor, and I think that they will get that, but it's not guaranteed. But I think they'll get at least 9. But I have the floor at 10, and if things run right and the Raiders continue to ascend like they have been doing, and I think that my shipmate over here was talking about how at the end of the years, for years and years and years, they were always in a nosedive. Last year was the first time in years that they won their last 4 games,
Yeah.
4. Yeah.
which propelled us to the playoffs. I can't remember who they beat the last. That's right.
Yeah.
That was Staley's fault. He let that one happen.
He did. He did. It's just big on those 4th
But,
down.
he also lost a couple other ones for you. So.
Yeah, don't get me started. I did a whole video on that. I definitely had to air my grievances.
If we're continuing to ascend, and I think we have a better team right now on paper, but you don't play on paper, and people get injured on the field. So that's why I said I'll take the over on the wins, and I will say, if I'm going to pick something. I'm going to say 10-7, 11-6 as a conservative, because this entire division, anybody in this division can win the division. And 1 through 4 is going to be, I don't think, no more than a 3-game swing between the top and the bottom. I really think it's going to be that tight.
I have one question for you, Captain. One. What are you guys gonna do in your secondary? Because it is not looking good.
Right. And I Richie, thank you for teeing it up for me, because I was going to say where I am kind of like very.
And sorry,
suspicious.
real quick. Bradbury went to the
I was gonna say that, you stupid bastard.
I was just letting you know your options are limited.
I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
Probably get Patrick Peterson. I think he's still.
You know what?
No, he's the Viking.
Because I'm trying not to swear on this show, I had that lined up, Richie. 1 year, $10 million from the Eagles. Okay,
right.
You're stealing some of the things that I was waiting on him, and he would have been the asset that we needed. Okay,
right.
Losing Bradbury means that our secondary amongst the corners are a little bit thinner than I want. The 2 areas that I am really leery of is right tackle and a cornerback. And I say a cornerback because Mullins just had surgery. I like Rock Yassin, but who's going to be playing on the other side of him? And you need cornerbacks in this division, although you don't need them as much since that Hill guy it no longer is there. But, you still need cornerbacks in this division. So I'm hoping that somebody comes up. You pick up a cornerback after June 1st because somebody's going to be let loose. Somebody's going to be let loose. So the best person available after June 1st, hopefully the Raiders will pick up. Because you guys forget, last year we picked up Casey Hayward and Denzel Perryman at the very end of signing people, and those were two of our better performers last year. Okay.
Yeah, I guess
Still
my
got Jonathan
pushback on
Nathan out there.
I guess my pushback on that, Captain, is just if you have a weak link on one side of the field, like for example, the Denver Broncos attempted to start. I can't remember the guy's name now. I intentionally blocked him from my mind because he was just so awful.
On the other guy,
Fuller.
on the
Fuller.
opposite side of Patrick Surtain?
No,
Fuller?
Fuller. So we signed Fuller on our team, Kyle Fuller, last year in the offseason. I was initially pretty excited because I thought he had the ability to potentially come back and maybe resurrect his career back in a Fangio system just because he kind of knew what he was doing. Then I completely forgot the fact that you actually need to be modestly athletic in order to do stuff.
Wow.
And then I was quickly brought back down to earth and then realized that was just a bad pickup. And so you watched Fuller get burned all the time on the field, and you watched him guys just ran by him, and then you watched him saying, "I'll eventually catch up," and he kind of looked like the fat kid running the 40 there in Little Giants, coughing and huffing and puffing. Except he's not fat, and
that was
he's
my
not
childhood,
young.
right?
Pardon me?
So that was my childhood. All right, let's.
Yeah, I know. It was a great movie. Don't get me wrong, but
No, the huffing and running.
You saw that happening in real time on TV. And you're like, you just don't want that to happen ever to your team. And so we brought in some other guys. And we eventually shored up a little bit better in our secondary once we kind of benched him. But I'm concerned that what will happen with the Raiders, and the reason why I'm kind of bringing this up for the over-under discussion here is if you have one guy that can persistently be targeted and you do not have an answer to have someone to backfill who's better, then what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to shift your safeties over to help. And then that's going to basically force you to change your defensive scheme. And then the other team's going to be able to adapt accordingly and then start zigzagging you all over the place.
Richie, you're pretty smart for a Canadian. I'll give you that. Okay.
We did win in 1812.
There you go. The one thing that I can't say is because losing Bradbury hurt, but I like the fact that we picked up Anthony Averett. We picked up a kid from the Bengals who was like a nickel whose name escapes me. He was a decent player, and unfortunately I can't remember his name. Okay. So we've gotten better over across the board as far as the depth. Okay. Mullen, like I said, is probably the best corner on our team, providing that he shows up and he's not injured. And I do like Rock Yassin. Losing Bradbury did hurt because Bradbury in Graham's system was perfect, and he knows the system would have been there. But I think that will be resolved in one way or another. We might not have had the Pro Bowl cornerback that we would have had with Bradbury.
Right.
But I think that we will be okay because both Bradbury and McDaniels scheme not just game to game, they scheme series to series. And that's the one thing I can say about this coaching staff is that the Raiders finally got people that actually know how to make, halftime adjustments. Hell, they make adjustments as the game goes on. And with McDaniels and Graham being able to scheme, I think that's going to be a lot better this year. Again, I'm still skeptical as to who they're going to trot out at cornerback and who that right tackle is going to be. But I'm pretty much happy with the rest of the roster as it's comprised right now. And they're going to get some help, I believe, after June 1st.
Well, assuming they don't find the cameras at halftime, then you get good adjustments with
or flatten the balls, right?
Right. Catch you deflating the balls. But I think the optimism is warranted. I think that the Raiders will definitely be competitive, and I think everybody will collectively say that we all praying for a good health, and not have it to hurt our major guns when it comes down to the start of the regular season. Your quarterbacks, your running backs, your linemen, your premier pass rusher, because that's everybody has that now in the division. Everybody has premier pass rushers. Need 2 or 3 of those throughout the year. So that's definitely something we got to keep an eye on. But in regards to the Chargers, real quick, before we move on, is that I'm very optimistic about our chances. I'm definitely taking the over for 10.5. I actually might go as high as maybe 13 wins, assuming health. Playing that third place schedule does help a little bit, because those lesser opponents that we get to play in that third place schedule is going to help us get some quality wins if we don't get in our own way. So I think that's the only thing that's really to be in the Chargers' Achilles heel is injuries, and just getting in your own way. Trying to do too much. Instead of just playing the game of football. So we can avoid those things, and I think we're starting to trend. The culture's starting to trend in that direction. We being more aggressive than being passive. Because I guess Chargers fans know that the knock on previous coaching staff and previous regimes is being too conservative. Now Staley's overly aggressive. Now we can just get him to dial it back a little bit, then we'll be fine. Dial it back a little bit, and give me a good ebb and flow. Give me a good 50-50 split on the decision making. But definitely definitely is positive from a schedule perspective. So I like our chances to be competitive, assuming we stay healthy. But yeah, overall, I think it's going to be a really good season. So to segue into that a little bit, unless you guys got any replies in regard to the Chargers schedule.
I do.
Okay, go ahead, Rich.
You guys finished the season, if I'm not mistaken, 1-4.
Mm-hmm.
That would be proud, most likely. Yeah, because I think,
right.
Yeah, accurate,
you guys have also had. I'm going to couple the two together because I think they're probably linked.
Mm-hmm.
You guys have also, over the last 3 seasons, had injuries at key positions with key players.
Yes.
Say, isn't Eckler hurt like every year? I mean, at some point, doesn't he get hurt?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Bosa gets hurt, is getting hurt a little bit more frequently. It seems Mac is getting hurt off and on as he's aging.
Who?
Oh, sorry, Captain. That would be 50 who.
Thank you.
Now you got you doing it. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So I just had to make sure I was speaking the same language, right? It's important when you're speaking to someone that you adapt to meet their language barriers. And I did so accordingly there. So how are you guys going to overcome that? I mean, I ask this honestly, and I'm not saying this to be crass as a divisional opponent. You guys have had issues with injuries the last 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not like Denver hasn't, but I'm just saying you guys have had injuries at key positions that have impacted the outcome of your season. How are you going to be able to overcome that and meet that win total that you just claimed? And then on top of that, what have you done to shore up the depth in order to ensure that if, or more likely when that happens, that you're not going to end up in the same position?
Well, Bryce Callahan. I just had to throw that out there. Bryce Callahan is the reason why he answers all our questions. All the questions you just asked, Bryce Callahan. But no, seriously, I think that
he's not an edge.
I understand that. Understand that the moves that we've made in this particular off-season cycle has been unprecedented when it comes to Chargers, transactions and in between seasons. So I think that, again, this is probably the deepest team I've seen in quality depth. It's one of those things that have a lot of people on your roster, and there's a difference between having quality people to back up your starters. And I think that we have addressed that in a big way. To Alex's point about Austin Eckler, having Isaiah Spiller as a complimentary back will definitely keep the touches low and the usage rate low on Austin Eckler's body. Number one, having a quality hybrid like Kyle Van Noy to spell Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa in spots where they don't have to play significant downs, every game in and game out. That's an added bonus. Having depth at corner, that's a big time bonus. Having depth at safety. So say hypothetically, knock on wood, the Derwin James does go down for a game or two. JT Woods and Sarah Adley can fill the void at him at safety. Quality players, quality backups. We didn't have that in years past. We just had guys. It's one thing to have depth and then having quality depth. So having quality depth, I would definitely say that is something completely and utterly different in this particular cycle when it comes down to the Chargers and how they address the offseason, how they've been aggressive in the offseason. So I think overall, I like our chances. And even if we do lose a key guy here or there, I think we'll be fine. And that'll keep the ship afloat and we can still win games.
Yeah.
Those guys come back. So I think that's what the staunch difference is between years past and now.
I think the biggest, wouldn't you say, at least his defensive side of the ball, probably Derwin James is the most important one to have healthy the full year.
Listen, he's the most important one, and you pay him whatever he wants because he cannot leave the Chargers open.
He's good.
Oh yeah.
I was curious kind of what everyone's thoughts were on, because obviously everyone's got offense right now, right?
Right.
So I think the more important thing outside of keeping the quarterbacks healthy the whole year is keeping the defenses healthy. More specifically, healthy enough to be able to play, all 6 of these AFC West matchups. So, so what do you think? Who do you think's the most important Raiders defensive player that needs to stay healthy the whole year?
Captain.
Is that to me?
Yeah. Well, you're the Raiders guy, right?
I just wanted to make sure it was directed at me.
Yes, it was.
I would say, DZ said Crosby. I would agree with that to a point, but I would say Chandler Jones, because if you don't have Chandler Jones and Crosby healthy, because we take for a fact that Chandler Jones is older. So everybody is going to say Crosby, but I think that the likelihood, and I don't want to jinx myself. I'm not saying this, but I think the likelihood of him having an injury is not as prevalent as Chandler Jones having an injury. So you understand where I'm going with this? Yes, Crosby, but you need to keep Chandler Jones healthy, and in order to do that, you need to spell all of these guys. So I think that with a healthy Crosby and Jones, because it's a tandem, and I do think that we have that best tandem, like you said, that 50-who guy with Bosa up there in Gargler land. That's a good one. Chubb, and whoever is on the other side of him in Denver is a good tandem. I can't. It's Frank Clark and who over there in KC?
Chris Stone Cold Jones, baby.
Okay, Jones. That. Okay, so we
Jones is interior. He is not an edge.
He still knows how to rush a QB, doesn't he?
Okay.
So is Aaron Donald, but don't we call
Jones
him
is your best rusher, but
he's
from the interior. He's not an edge.
Anyway, okay. We all have tandems in this division, okay? I think that I would say that the key is to keep the edge rush or Jones from the middle, because he is your best rusher. Keeping them healthy is going to directly predicate wins, because with that strong pass rush and the Raiders have gotten a lot heavier up the middle, or not heavier, but a little bit more aggressive up the middle. That's going to help out the safeties on the back ends and the corners on the back ends. That's my answer to you. I know it's convoluted, but I think you understand where I'm going with that.
I was picking up what you're putting down.
I like that.
So
we would say that Derwin James and Chandler Jones. So who's your must have on the defensive side of the ball for the Chiefs, Alex?
That's a good one.
I would say, at this stage going into it, it's got to be Chris Jones, just because of the presence he has in the interior of the line, in both the run game and rushing the passer. I think as we get closer to the season, there's going to be someone else that kind of comes out that is going to be like, he's got to be more so the guy and stay healthy. But I just going into it right now, there's so much fight for playing time, pretty much outside of the D line with the linebackers and the secondary. There's so many new guys coming in that at this stage, we really don't know who the guys are going to be. So I think outside of losing Honey Badger, Chris Jones is definitely the best and most important player on the defense. And without him, they're going to be pretty screwed at, actually having a good pass rush. I think someone asked about Karlaftis. I think he's going to be good. There definitely is a reason they drafted him, and he was, I personally think he fell a lot further than he should have.
Agreed.
And I think he went to a good spot with Chris Jones and Frank Clark and him. I mean, you can't account for all those guys on top of blitzing guys off the edge and things like that. So, something's going to open up for someone's going to kind of emerge outside of Chris Jones to probably be a pretty important pass rusher, but they wouldn't be without Chris Jones. So to circle back, Chris Jones.
Okay. Rich, who you have as your must-have on defense, stay healthy guy all season?
DJ Jones.
Run stopping interior D lineman.
He is legit. I mean, he's also very underrated at getting pass, kind of making those tackles for loss. A lot of people don't realize that a lot of his run stopping is tackles for loss, not just stopping the run, but also behind the line itself, which is basically in the right defensive scheme. I think he could actually start getting sacks from that kind of D-end spot. And just for the record, for those watching, I predicted DJ Jones to be our kind of replacement, if you will, for Shelby Harris.
Yeah,
I don't see him as a D tackle or nose tackle for the Broncos. My prediction is that he kind of plays that D end role that we had Shelby Harris play instead.
Mm-hmm.
So in my opinion, I kind of see DJ Jones being that kind of like absolute must-have player. And if I had to pick another one, I probably go for No, I'm one of the few Broncos
high on
players
Simmons. I am. I love Justin Simmons. But
I'm neutral on him. I'm not necessarily really high on him, and I'm not really low on him. I think he's made some mistakes in terms of some of his tackling things. I think he's taken some bad angles and things that have cost
He's
the
in a
Broncos.
contract year too, isn't he?
No, he's got his contract already signed. Now, he's an incredibly intelligent player. He knows exactly what he needs to do. He knows exactly why he needs to be there, the whole nine. But I do think that he has. Now, I will say last year he made major improvements on a lot of his biggest faults. So, I mean, if he continues that trajectory, then he can be super dangerous. But I'm gonna probably go ahead and select Patrick Surtain, who I believe showed a greater polish at his position, given the fact that he was a rookie, and B, you couldn't tell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's a baller.
Like you just couldn't tell.
Your answer has to be a Jones because all of us have said a Jones.
James or Jones. James or Jones. That's to be a J. James or Jones.
Well, I said a Jones, and Gibbons said a Jones, and Richie Riche said a Jones.
You said a James. It's good enough.
It's like that Jones and Jonas commercial.
Yeah.
Like, Jones, Jonas. Yeah, that commercial.
Well, Captain, they call that keeping up with the Joneses, right?
Yeah. Yes.
A little something like that. That. All right. Quick round robin. Last topic as we wrap up here in our illustrious podcast here. Real quick point of order. Shameless plug to always follow us on our social medias. Lockdown Defense is mine. Richie Riche on Twitter. Ed The Real Givens on Twitter, and Captain Jack Rackham on Twitter. So follow us on social media as well as our YouTube channels. Appreciate the love and always like and subscribe to our videos. We appreciate your support. Last topic of the evening, though, we want to get into our draft pick / UDFA predictions. So, is there one guy I guess maybe a lower tier? Because I'm sure the early round picks will make the roster, but later round guys or UDFA's undrafted free agents picked up by your organization, who is most likely in your organization to make the 53-man roster? I'm gonna throw it up to Cap first.
Yeah, of course. Screw you, man. You give me the first dibs there.
I'm trying to be fair. I didn't pick you first at all. This podcast, I want to pick you first for the last segment.
Okay, I got you. I appreciate it. I don't want to say that I was unprepared, but I looked at all of the UDFAs that we picked up, and I even went back to the guys that we picked up at the very end. You know, like with Munford, the tackle guard out of Ohio State. I have a feeling that there's going to be such a major turnover on the Raiders roster with the new influx, the McDaniels coming in and getting his guys, that there's going to be so many of these guys that when you talk about making it, I will say making it plus practice squad, there's going to be a big assimilation, like the Borg just came in. Okay, Bama Lasine, who's an undrafted kid, you can't teach size at like what 6'8" or 6'5" and 320 or whatever, just humongous. Okay, he's gonna be on the practice squad, or he's gonna get a hangnail and it's gonna be IR'd for the year. Okay, you don't want to lose him. Okay. Then there's, and again, I apologize because I was looking. I said, yeah, I can see him. Yeah, I can see. The only one that I don't think is going to make it was Trey Turner, because we cut him the other day. So which is an easy pickup, but it was amazing because we gave him $40,000 to come in and we cut him. So, there and I tell you what, can I go and get my list back again, because I want to give you a good answer. But I said Olasine, Mumford, because again, building up that offensive line, those are guys that I think are definitely going to be there for us, that are going to make the team. Paul Amau at safety, undrafted. I would say definitely Paul Amau. Oh, Matthew.
Right on time. There you go.
Yeah. Thank you there. And I swear I didn't see it before I threw it out there. Mm-hmm. But Matthew and me were copacetic on that. Paul Amau, who is a very good safety prodigy, obviously because of his lineage, and we need help at safety, will be there. There's also I'm sorry, sir.
Does he have long hair?
I don't know if it's as long and luxurious as mine is, but
does he have long hair like Troy? Because he ain't going to cut it as a Palomalu if not. So
yeah,
that's a good point.
But hey, I'm not bad for an old geezer who's pushing 60. But for mine, not him. But yeah, I think that he's definitely going to be there as well, again, because of the secondary help. The people were saying, what did we do to address our crappy secondary? Okay, maybe not enough, but this is a process, folks. This is a process. And like I said, the Raiders' ascension, where they are going to do it the new Raider way, don't say it's the Patriot way. No. New Raider way, which is the way that it should have been done for years, is going to be to move up, get rid of guys a year early rather than a year late, getting bargain people on contracts and cutting people that you just ain't making it. That's why we got rid of Edwards, because he wasn't going to make it. We got a better pick out of it, because we traded him in on a high rather than dealing him on a low. So like Carlos said, and I've said this before, any team here can win the AFC West, and there's not going to be more than a 3-game, in my estimation, a 3-game swing between top and bottom.
Agreed. So who do you have, Alex?
Yeah. Well, I think in terms of the draft picks the Chiefs had, I mean, they have so many of them that I think there's a chance at one of them. And kind of the guys picked 1 through 5 are all for sure locks. They're making it. But I think once you get into the people that were picked later after that, just because they loaded up on so many defensive backs, I think a couple of them are not going to make. I think at least one of the people they drafted is not making it, maybe 2, and one being one of these lower tier defensive backs, and the other one being that running back from Rutgers, just because they also signed some running backs, and I think the 2 positions are of running back and corner, and kind of the just secondary as a whole are going to be the most battle filled for the whole preseason. And they already have basically 2 running backs and 2 guys in the secondary that were on the roster before, brought in free agents. So those are the 2 positions that guys are going to kind of get the crap into the stick, interesting kind of when I thought about this question coming into it, Veach, when he had his postseason or post-draft press conference, he made a comment about how he drafted so many defensive backs because he didn't think that agents would recommend their undrafted clients to go there, because it'd be such a fight for, with them spending a 1st-round pick on a corner, a 2nd-round pick on a safety, that no agent would recommend his client go there because there's going to be such a fight for playing time or to even get reps in practice. So I thought that comment was interesting in that he said, well, if no agent's going to do that, I'm just going to load up. And if the guy doesn't make it, I'll practice squad him. If not, it was a 7th round pick. So what's the loss there? I think in terms of the undrafted free agents, obviously they signed so many of those for like rookie mini camp and preseason camp depth. And that's all they're there for. You come in, say you were here for 3 weeks and get your gear and leave. I do think there's a couple they signed that I think have a really good shot to make the 53. One being that the Jerrion Ely I talked about kind of last week, the running back out of Ole Miss that was highly touted 5-star recruit going into college and just kind of didn't pan out stat wise, but one of those rookie running backs is going to make it. And I think have a decent role as a change of pace, 3rd down type of back. The other guy that I know is a lock is he's that linebacker from South Dakota. I'm blanking on his name. Jack Cochran. He is like he played FCS obviously at South Dakota, which I actually watched a good chunk of those games being here in Springfield, Missouri State's in that same conference. So always watch North Dakota State, those Dakota schools. They always have ballers, and that guy's a baller. He is a hard-nosed, down-the-hill tackling linebacker and, really, really athletic guy for the middle of the field, and honestly had a lot of people projecting him to be drafted, kind of off chance that he fell into the Chiefs' lap. So I think he's definitely a lock. And the last one is Justin Ross from Clemson.
Can't leave him out.
Yeah, no. But it's the obvious one, so I left him for last.
Got it.
Barring any sort of significant medical, setback with him, I think he's definitely a lock. And then I think you're going to see some receivers kind of get cut that have been around on the Chiefs for a while, but not necessarily, and none of you guys would probably know who they are. But me being a Chiefs fan and following the roster would know they've been there for 3-4 years. But those are the guys I think are out of that undrafted crop that are for sure going to make it, with Ely kind of being on the fence. It kind of depends on how the battle goes in terms of preseason and getting touches with the ball and how that other guy from Rutgers looks. But either way, the Chiefs kind of went through a youthful, injecting a lot of youth into the roster. So I'm just really excited to see how they all kind of fit into the core that's somewhat still there, and how they kind of change up their schemes from a couple years past here.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna let Rich bring us home on that because mine is gonna be really quick. I feel like because I mapped this completely out and I counted from 1 to 53, and based upon the draft picks we had, I feel like all but our last 7th-round pick makes the 53-man roster, and that kind of caps us at 53. And it's going to be a battle whether or not Xander Horvath can beat out Gabe Neighbors for fullback would determine whether or not all our draft picks make the 53-man roster. The only caveat to that is Gabe Neighbors is roommates with Justin Herbert. So Justin Herbert might walk into the Steelers office like, look here, Gabe stays. So put Xander on the practice squad, Gabe stays, and we're just going to leave it at that. But outside of that, I think with all our free agents make all our draft picks make it, and I think if one UDFA makes it, I think if Letty Brown, the undrafted running back that we picked up after the draft, outperforms Larry Roundtree, he'll be the 3rd back on our depth chart because it'll be Spiller, Eckler, and then it'll be either Roundtree or Letty Brown. So those are my.
What happened to Kelly? Is he gone?
I think Chargers fans across the Twitter first think that he's going to end up off the roster. He just had to stand out. I liked him when we drafted him in the 4th round, but he just hadn't put on. He just hadn't put on with the league yet. He just hadn't. He's a nice one cut back out of UCLA, but I think he's going to be the odd man out, especially with them drafting Spiller. I think the writing was on the wall when they drafted Spiller. That they knew that they were going to move on from him. All right, Rich, it's on you, bud. Bring us home.
So you guys kind of picked a draft pick, and you guys picked it at UDFA. I just assumed that the majority of our draft picks were likely going to make the roster. The Broncos have been big on youthful depth on our team, and a lot of our draft picks were in that vein. So I kind of assumed that most of our draft picks were likely going to be slotted in at like kind of the third stringers for the Denver Broncos roster. But the one guy that I actually think has a legitimate shot at being not just making the roster, but even potentially being almost like supplanting the guy that's there now as a starting role is Wazirike from Iowa State. When you look at what he can do in the interior, his size, some of the things that he has at his disposal, he has the potential to potentially displace our current starter in Mike Purcell at the nose tackle, D tackle spot. Now, I'm not saying it's a given. I'm just saying that depending on preseason and practice, it's certainly a possibility. And Purcell was hurt last season. I know we've been looking for that kind of that stalwart there in the interior, that center spot there on the D line. So I really think that he's got a legit chance of potentially being a starter. Now, on the UDFA side, I have Chris Allen. I think the Broncos all but kind of put showed their hand a little early. In my opinion, I think they made a bit of a mistake there because I think we should have kept more people on the roster and maybe made some other moves. However, Chris Allen is an outside linebacker. He has got massive, massive upside. He fell, in my opinion, in the draft for some rather unfortunate circumstances. He probably should have been drafted, but wasn't. But he's almost a steal in the UDFA ranks for the Denver Broncos. I also think that the Denver Broncos draft history for UDFAs at the outside linebacker position has really tilted us in the favor of picking up these gems at the outside linebacker spot because they have really shown out in the NFL. Now, you guys might recommend Shaq, for example. Shaq Barrett from the Tampa Bay Bucks is a Denver Broncos UDFA. Loved him here. He really took off when he went to the Bucks and really kind of showed out what he could really do. And then we also had Malik Reed, who's currently on the roster on a 1-year deal. He's effectively on borrowed time with our team, but he's another UDFA that really has kind of outshone his draft status. I see Chris Allen as yet another one of those guys who's undrafted. Denver's going to likely build him back up at the outside linebacker spot. And I think he's going to look like a starter and could well end up earning a second contract for the Broncos because I think he has the potential to do so.
Awesome. All right, gentlemen, I appreciate your feedback and your takes. Great show. Wrapping up over here about an hour and 30 minutes. Everybody in the chat, rep your squads on the way out, man. But I appreciate everybody coming through. Each and every Wednesday, we'll be right here for the Wild Wild West podcast, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Is that 4:30 Central or 4:30 Western? I don't do time zones well, but you get the point. If you know Eastern Standard Time, you know when we start on the podcast each and every Wednesday.
Google it.
Defense. That is Richie at MHRT Network. Alex Givens of Arrowhead Addict. Appreciate it. Arrowhead Addict retweeting us today. We appreciate that love on Twitter. Captain Jack Rackham. He's doing the show after this. Cap, you doing the show after this?
No, I'm not, but I will be doing shows on Wednesday during the regular season, and I think probably next Wednesday I might be doing a show. So if I like pop out at 9:00, it's because I got to go. But no, I'm good, Coach. You and I just sit down and rap, man. We're good.
Okay, I'm just checking. I was going to send the crew to your way if you're doing a show after this. That's all.
No, but they can always hit my shows. Tuesdays and Thursdays and Sundays, and trust me, I love everybody coming in, man.
Awesome. So my both family out there, appreciate everybody that came through each and every week. And like next week, we'll be back 7:30 Eastern Standard Time, Wild Wild West podcast on your airways. Until next time, see you when we see you.
Yar!